Hey, everybody, it's April Woodard, and welcome to Conversations in Chaos. You know, over the last few months, people across the nation have been protesting and spreading awareness on the Black Lives Matter movement. And USA Today actually has said that 46% of people who are protesting, the young people who are protesting, actually believe their opinions and their advocacy have an effect on the political climate in our country. So today, we're going to talk to some of them. We're going to talk to young activists, trailblazers, and future politicians who are becoming the giants, our new giants handling the situation out there today. They are becoming the global change agents. This is Conversations in Chaos, Young Activism. I want to say welcome to all of my activist panel. NUPOL KIAZOLU was not able to join us today, and she's going to join us at another time. But I'd like to welcome EDARI. Hi, NIALAH. Nia White. Hey. Are you there, Nia? Good to see you. And CHIBUEZE EZENYILIMBA. How'd I do, CHIBUEZE?
You did all right. You did all right. EZENYILIMBA. EZENYILIMBA is the last name.
EZENYILIMBA. Okay, yes, I had it all wrong. I apologize for that. Nia, are you there? Did we lose Nia? All right. Well, let's get started. I'd first like to thank you all for being here as we continue to uplift and educate and motivate other young people to get involved in the journey towards change. And our first guest is an alumna of Columbia University and a current student at Barnard College. She's an activist and co-founder of Freedom March, NIALAH EDARI. And Freedom March is a protest organization devoted to help build nonviolent protests all over New York City. So let's take a look of some of her activism.
We'll be providing frontline support for organizing on the ground. We will be building out the organizational capacity and infrastructure to build out a staff, trainings, launch digital campaigns.
Their goal?
To be able to do this long term, but at the same time recognizing that both NIALAH and I aren't going to be youth forever. The onus is really on us to make sure we are training the next generation to carry this torch.
And while in a few years they might no longer be the ones leading this particular charge, these women tell me they have no plans to stop in their fight for equality and justice.
I don't want to let up. I see things already happening right now, and just to keep that pressure on and continue to make sure these changes are happening.
This is our lives, and this is the lives of our children and our grandchildren.
So NIALAH, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so inspired by you and seeing you out there making your voices heard. On your site, you explained that Freedom March New York City is organizing nonviolent protests and policy reform leading up to the 2020 presidential election and 2021 New York City mayoral race. So what outcomes are you looking for? What do you anticipate is going to happen?
Yeah, so right now we're hyper-focused on New York City and New York State. And some of the outcomes that we're hoping for is getting police officers out of schools and also divesting and reinvesting some of that budget into youth programs, into education, into mental health programs. Currently, we see those things happening, although the budget that we hope for didn't pass through New York City Council. So we're hoping to, continue protesting and demonstrating until we get the results that we want.
So you ain't tired yet, is what you're trying to say, right?
I'm definitely tired, but I'm not letting up.
Got it.
That is key. I'm definitely tired, but I'm gonna be out there.
Okay.
And I'll be asking for others to join me so we can rotate, because this work definitely is tiring. But while we have this momentum, as you saw in the video that you just posted, is that we need to keep this pressure on.
Got it. Got it. All right. Well, I want to welcome our next guest now. She's a young activist who is a part of the Freedom March New York City team, and the youngest being 17 years old and taking over as their lead organizer. Nia White, she is an incoming freshman at Hampton University. She's also involved in other community organizations such as We Believe Incorporated and Black Women's Blueprint, where she states she developed a realization for the power in her voice. Let's take a look at some of her great work.
No. Black Lives Matter! We're going to say it until all of New York City hears us. We are the social media generation. We have grew up with Facebook, Instagram, every sort of platform. So when you see Black people gunned down, choked out, shot up inside of their own communities, inside of their own homes, and you still see nothing being done about it, it gets you so confused and so frustrated. That's why we are organizing right now. You keep on poking a bear and you keep on poking a bear, they're gonna end up biting back. Everyone is just getting tired of it.
Wow, Nia, you are so involved in a lot of organizations. I'm just curious, how do you find the time to balance everything?
How do I find the time to balance everything? That is an amazing question. Honestly, I don't find the time, but I make it happen. So honestly, it's mostly about the dedication and the knowing that this movement and this revolution is way beyond me. So it's honestly just remembering, like, this is the work of my ancestors. This is the work that I need to make sure that the future generation doesn't have to go through and doesn't have to do. So it's really just the passion that I have that makes me do it.
Yeah, well, I just want to know, like, what initiatives are you hoping to push through as you lead the organization Freedom March NYC?
Yeah, so being the lead organizer, I'm only 17 years old. So I just graduated high school. I'm going to Hampton this fall. And honestly, the main initiatives that we have, so we have a 5 to Freedom policy, and it's mostly focusing on the issues that we need during 2020 to be done in order for the protests to die down. We're never going to obtain peace, because without justice, there will be no peace. So in order for the other people to want us to stop, then you need to let these type of things be done. So part of our 5 to Freedom policy is things like getting police out of the education buildings, because we know that students are being taught how to be criminals before they're being taught how to be educated. Also, another is how to defund in order to refund the community. So those are just 2 out of the 5 things that we have. So those are just a few of the initiatives that we plan on executing, and we will execute.
Nia, you're so young. I mean, 17 years old. I mean, what was the turning point for you to get involved in this movement?
Yeah, honestly, the turning point was I've been about it. So it's really just seeing everything that's going on. Like, we know that George Floyd wasn't the first man who couldn't breathe. We know that before there was Ahmaud Arbery, there was Sandra Bland. Before Sandra Bland, there was Tamir Rice. So seeing these people younger, and even younger than I am, knowing that it can happen to me, it can happen to my 10-year-old nephew, it can happen to my future children, just realizing that I don't have the privilege to take off this skin, and I don't have the privilege to stop this fight. So it just made me want to go out there. It just gave me the strive, and it gave me the passion, it gave me the fire, because this is the fire that my ancestors had brought to me. This is the fire that everyone is just depending on, the voices that are out there. And if I'm not out there, then who am I to actually complain about it?
All right. Well, so inspirational. You're so inspirational. All right. I want to welcome our next guest is a recent graduate of Farmingdale State College and pursuing to be a nurse practitioner. He is a young activist and organizer of the Black Tie Walk, a protest meant to challenge the narrative of protesters being called thugs by President Trump. Let's take a look at his first experience in activism.
We're trying to raise awareness. I love the signs. I love everybody that's here. So today we're going to be walking peacefully, protesting from here to Prospect Park. Today we're using this event as some to raise awareness to African American males, African American females, just to say that we are not thugs. The way we are dressed today is the way we dress every day. All right? We're not trying to cause a commotion. We're not going to be doing anything crazy. And again, thank you. I'm going to let my friend here speak.
Welcome, CHIBUEZE. How are you?
I'm well, and you?
Good. So Tell me why it was important for you to formulate this protest when you're first wearing a tie and a suit.
Basically, the narrative is always around Black people that is always posted that we're thugs. You know, like what they show in the media isn't what we really are. You know? For me, it kind of hit home because like my father like came from Africa, from Nigeria. My mom came from Jamaica. I'm a first generation, and they've always been about excellence. My dad has 3 masters. You know, he came here with nothing. Has 3 different masters from the University of Illinois, University of Pittsburgh. My mom came here with nothing. You know what I mean? She came here and she's a health educator. So like, you know, I've never understood that narrative because for me, I've always been surrounded by Black excellence. The way I dress, like when I go out, I'm not, you know, I always kind of wear like a turtleneck and pants. Like that's the way I dress. That's the way the people around me dress. That's the way we dress as a Black community when we go out to certain events. So it's like, you know, when Trump came out and said that we are, he kind of lumped the protesters and the rioters all in one, and he said that we're thugs. And I'm like, that's
Yeah. It reminds me of the civil rights movement, seeing Martin Luther King and all the others with him side by side, locked arm in arm, wearing suits as they protest. Does it remind you of that from the footage that maybe you've seen as a youngster?
Yes, definitely. The best part about that is we actually did that. You know, we kind of reenacted the moment that we see, you know, learning, growing up. The moments they show you in the textbooks, they show you these black men of Black excellence, locked arms, and just showing excellence and walking together in solidarity. That was the whole point. We're peacefully protesting, we're walking in solidarity, we're walking together, and we're showing that, you know what I mean, we're not thugs. You know, and it was a great turnout. They got to be very good photos of us locked arms, just showing exactly what we know.
Well, I'd like to bring all of my panelists back. I think Nia may have dropped off, but I'd like to bring all of you all back and just ask, you know, what has it been like protesting? Any extraordinary experiences that you can tell us about your participation?
So I went to the Children's March hosted by Until Freedom and seeing Winta there. Winta is a 7-year-old activist. You may have seen videos of her saying like, no justice, no peace, marching through the streets. And just hearing her speak and that like our children are hyper aware of what's going on and they have to be aware of what's going on. And these are conversations that parents unfortunately have to have with their young ones. And just hearing her speak about like, we don't get no justice, we don't get any peace was just really profound to hear that from a 7-year-old and a really beautiful moment to be outside.
Someone even younger than you guys. So what about you, CHIBUEZE?
For me, it was amazing. Just for me, like when we did the protest, like just seeing the people that came out, people in support of us that is just not Black people. You know what I mean? Like people that are not Black people, and having those white counterparts and those Spanish counterparts and those brown counterparts, no matter what race it is, just to have those kind of people out there with us and fully support and dressing up suit and tie, like, you know, like I'm like, oh, I didn't know you would. Thank you, though. You know what I'm saying? Having them out there like that with us, and it was just amazing. And certain people's testimonies and what they had to say about the situation kind of opened my eyes. Because for me, being a Black, I've never really kind of been exposed to these social injustice. I know of them, but I've never been exposed to it.
Right.
Thank you know, not to on wood. I want to say thank God about that, but I've never really had a story to speak on it. To hear other stories, it's just like that could have been me. You know, like that really could have been me.
Right.
So it's crazy and amazing.
And Nia, you're back with us. We're just talking about any unique experience you have had during your protesting.
Yeah, so the first night that I actually went out to protest, I protested with Chelsea Miller, and we went out, and literally that was during the moment when the rioting was happening. So we ended up having to protect with our bodies the Target over at Atlantic Mall, and it was just so, I wouldn't call it revolutionary because this whole entire moment and movement is revolutionary, but it was just so, it just altered my mind really, because I was just noticing how people really don't recognize why we're doing this. They feel as though that it's about the property that we're trying to protect, when in actuality, it's the lives that we're trying to protect and the lives that we're trying to save, and not these properties. So regardless whether or not you support or whether or not you're against the rioting, people need to understand why everything is happening. And no matter what, whether or not you want to take it literally or figuratively, America will have to come to an end unless they realize that racism, and whether or not they recognize that the racism, the systematic oppression, and the systemic oppression needs to end. So when we were out there and realizing that the target was being more protected, and the businesses were protected, then it was just crazy to me, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Have you guys ever experienced any agitators that have been on scene? We've seen videos on social. I had some friends that posted videos of bricks that were strategically left there, or even police cars that are not even in circulation anymore, being strategically left in certain places, and step by step. I think there was one brother who was on social media who showed the video and then broke it down and explained this person did this and that person did that. Did you guys witness any of that?
The most that I
Yeah. Okay.
Go ahead, Nia. I'm sorry, CHIBUEZE.
Mm-hmm. You can go. You can go. Oh, okay. Yeah. So, like I was saying, the first night that we had went out before Freedom March NYC was actually started, literally the following day. I think that that was the 29th or the 28th, I believe. But basically, it was me, my sister, and a group of other protesters, and we had to line up in front of the target, locking arms with like poles in front of us, because agitators were among us, undercover officers were among us, and literally they were just trying to get the crowd riled up, and we had to protect ourselves against 100 other protesters who were just trying to shift the narrative, honestly, and they weren't recognizing why we're out here. So we had to make sure that our narrative was being said and our narrative was being heard, because that's what matters.
Right.
Yeah.
Go ahead, CHIBUEZE.
So for me, the most that I can personally speak on is that I noticed. Because I didn't, my protests were early in the day, and I remember like the riots kind of happened after, like when they really started rioting. What time was it? After 8, I believe. I'm not really I don't remember, but we were out there from, I'll say, 11 a.m. till about 7 p.m. and we started seeing the officers line up. We started seeing them, with their batons and their shields and stuff like that. So at that point, that was when we kind of disbanded it. We kind of told everybody, hey, listen, if you don't have a way home, come here. Like we had people out there, we had EMTs, we had, just in case, because it was very hot too as well, but we just had like EMTs and people out there just to kind of guide people home and help people get home, because we tried to avoid that. That was the whole basis for us. We're like, we're going to peacefully protest, and we're also going to avoid any kind of face-to-face interaction with those police officers. So I can't really say I saw anything on that scale, because we kind of tried to do that.
I see. Okay, and when you answer, just get a little closer to the mic, because it's sort of, you're going in and out a little bit, CHIBUEZE. I want to ask NIALAH, do you think that it's become a trend to protest? Some people argue that it has. What do you think? Do you push back on that statement?
And so I push back a little bit. It's definitely not a trend for me or a trend for Nia or a trend for people who have been here. It's their first time out here and they wanted to, make a statement. But it has been trendy in some ways for allies who may have been showing like performative allyship. That first week, you see a lot of posts, a lot of allies posting about this is what actions they can take, what can they do, and then lately it's kind of been quiet. So that I would say you have to remind people that Black Lives Matter is not a trend. This is our livelihood. Like, we're fighting for our lives. It's not the newest hashtag, not the easiest way to get likes right now, because this is a conversation that's going on. This is our livelihood. So in some ways, I would say that it's trendy for some people, but it's not.
What do the rest of you think about that?
Definitely. I believe that it being a trend can be a good and bad thing, because being trendy just anything that's a trend brings national attention, and that's what we want. We knew that it was going to be a trend, and we knew that, and it was always noted that eventually people would try to change that, like try to get off of that. And that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to stay on that. For example, like I was doing my marches very early, and then I said, let me step back, and I'm gonna go back again later on when it's not as much conversation, because I'm gonna try and keep that conversation going, because that's what we do. So yes, I would say sometimes it is a trend. Like I would say it is a trend, and we just want to keep the trend going for as long as possible, because as you can see, we're getting a lot of national attention, and a lot of things are starting to happen. We're starting to get noticed. And that's the whole point. That that's what we're trying to get done.
But do you think that a trend will turn into permanent change? Any of you?
Definitely.
I think I could take that one. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
No.
would you like to go? Okay. Okay. Yeah. So I feel as though that the idea of a trend can be a good or a bad thing. Like we've seen how the writing became a trend, and people were doing it literally across nations. So Freedom March NYC doesn't demonize, nor do we condone writing. It's really not our place. We just make sure that our narrative is centered around nonviolent protest, so that our protesters who come out and trust us can actually go home safe and not be in fear. So honestly, when we think about Black Lives Matter becoming a trend and whether or not it will actually implement permanent change, we should honestly just think about like the trends that were happening during the civil rights movement. It wasn't really a trend, it was more of a revolution. So if that's in the sense of the trend that's going on, then I'm all for it, because it did actually implement change during that time. Even though we're still facing these issues, but there are actual policy changes that will actually come when people realize that Black Lives Matter, not because it's a trend, but Black Lives Matter each and every day, because again, we don't have the option to take off the skin or say that we don't matter today, but we matter tomorrow.
CHIBUEZE, you want to take it too?
I feel like she basically covered everything, but for me, I believe, like she said, trends. If this trend can lead to revolution, you know what I mean? Like this can be the trend that causes change, because so much people now want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, or for those that were to and trying to kind of ignore it, now they're seeing. Like for me personally, I've had friends of opposite races that never really understood it, and now they see like me or people around me that are just so passionate about it, and they're like, wow, you know, I'm learning, and they're willing to learn. I think I saw a post where a guy was a former a KKK member. He had like a specific tattoo that he said he's getting removed because he never really understood anything, and this kind of brought knowledge to him. So I feel like this trend is just, it can become evolutionary. So
I want to ask you all, you know, we talked a little bit about Martin Luther King, and you all wearing ties and suits while you protest, CHIBUEZE, and you know, it took 13 years for there to be change. We're just in a few weeks, you know, here, not a few, but, you know, a couple of handfuls of weeks, not years. Are you all prepared for the long haul?
Definitely. And that's why we launched Freedom March to be a led civil rights organization. So after being out there May 31st, we're like, we're in this for the long haul. We want this to be long term. As we say on our website, this is not a moment, this is a movement. We want to do this work sustainably. So we plan to continue lobbying for the legislative change that we want, and also demonstrating to make sure that people are aware of the changes that we are protesting for.
Right. And what kind of push is it going to take for the recognition for cases such as Breonna Taylor? I mean, there hasn't been a charge or a conviction.
I honestly think that that's going to take for more amplification from allies, from Black men. We see how much energy was given after George Floyd's death, how people took to the streets. So we need that same energy for Breonna Taylor. And Freedom March NYC is doing that, but we can't do that by ourselves. Like, we need people to come outside for Black women the same way that we come outside for Black men.
Right. Anybody else want to respond to that before I go to the next question?
Yeah, definitely. Me personally, Black Tower, what we actually did after doing our first march, we kind of marched in the name of Black women. We teamed up with this organizational group called Strategy for Black Lives, led by beautiful Black women, intelligent queens that, you know, they were just walking and we were just naming them. We were speaking on Sandra Bland, Breonna Taylor. There was so much more women. I'm sorry, I can't remember off the top of my head right now, but it was so much that they educated me on. And even just not even just Black women, you know what I'm saying? Like the transgender community, they're being targeted as well. So it's just a huge learning experience for me as a black man, and just seeing like anytime something happens to a Black man, we always notice how hard our Black queens ride for us. You know what I'm saying? So it's like for me, I come from a Black woman. I come from a Black queen. So I can't let things happen to these Black women, these Black queens, and I'm not riding out for them. So that's how I felt about it. I feel like I need to be outside marching for our Black queens. And I'm not gonna stop saying anything until something happens for Breonna Taylor, for Sandra Bland. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like that one right there, Sandra Bland, is very scary. Just seeing what really happened scares me, because that could have been my mom.
Right. Well, speaking of your mom, has everybody approved of you all protesting, particularly in the midst of a pandemic? I mean, what are your parents saying? Are they encouraging you, or are some of them not as encouraging? Just tell me, you know, what they have to say.
My family is super proud. I know in order to come back, like to visit, I definitely needed to get tested, and I did get tested. And I also just make sure that when I'm outside, I'm wearing a mask. Of course, I know that being outside in general is a risk, mask or not, but I make sure that I, along with my team members, take the proper safety precautions. And then when we get back home, quarantining. So, you know, resting until it's time to go back outside again.
We have a question. It says, what is the most difficult thing about protesting?
I feel as though protesting within a pandemic, that has probably been the most difficult thing, honestly, because then you're trying to fight for these people's lives, but then your life is also being at risk because of the second pandemic, while you're trying to stop the first pandemic that has been happening for over 400 years. So it's honestly just trying to realize that you need to take precautions while also taking precautions so that you're not engaging with the police officers, but also not engaging with too many people. So with Freedom March NYC, we're usually leading thousands of people throughout these protests, and we're literally talking in front of thousands of people, and we can't say like we haven't been inside the space where there possibly could have been something out there that could have affected us, because we don't know. So honestly, it's just realizing like you need to take precautions double time now, so especially during these times.
Okay. All right. New Yorkers, let's see. CHIBUEZE, you're in New York. NIALAH, are you in New York, or is it Nia?
So I am in New York. You asked me earlier where I was from, so I said Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Okay, so have you guys had a chance to check out the renaming of the streets to Black Lives Matter Avenue on 5th Avenue in New York?
I haven't. I've seen it on social media. Okay.
What about you, CHIBUEZE?
Yeah.
No, I didn't watch it.
Okay. What do you guys think about it?
It's a nice gesture. You know?
You want action, right?
It's cute. It's really cute.
It's
nice.
We asked for this, and you give us that to kind of like. Do you think that's what that's not what we asked for? But it's nice. Thank you, because how they gave Dr. Martin Luther King his own like day. You know what I'm saying? Like they give us a whole month, but they don't really understand what we really want, and we keep saying it, and they give us the opposite. So it's a nice gesture. Thank you.
Well, a lot of people have expressed, you know, different opinions about it. Trump, of course, wasn't for it because it's right in front of one of his buildings, and other people have complained about it. But I'm interested, speaking of Trump, your opinion about him equating protesters and activists to terrorists. You all have been all a part of organizations that have been promoting nonviolent protests. So what do you think about being kind of put into a group together and being called terrorists?
I definitely believe that shows what kind of person he is, what kind of man he is, where his morale stands, especially claiming that there's good people on both sides in Charlottesville when a young woman was killed, but yet protesters are terrorists. So that just shows that is who we have occupying the White House. We have a racist who does not care for Black lives.
The rest of you, were you offended by it?
Oh,
yeah, I wasn't really offended by it. To be honest, I don't really care what he has to say about me, because I know that I'm a Black scholar and I'm educated and I'm a Black woman and I'm a Black queen and honestly all the Blackness I am. So it's honestly just realizing that he's him and I'm me. So honestly, why would I have business with what he has to say about me? And I'm not the person who's going outside because I can't have a haircut and walking outside in front of the city building with my AK. So honestly, if I'm a terrorist for actually realizing that Black lives matter, Black trans matter, Black women matter, Black men matter, Black children matter, if I'm a terrorist because of that, then that's just his business.
Okay, all right. I'm just concerned about, again, what you guys think about the allies that are participating with you. So do any of you all have friends outside of your race? Curious.
Yes.
You do? And any of you have friends that are Caucasian, white?
Yes.
And what do they have to say? Have you all had that conversation with them? Have they gone out to protest with you? Have you had to explain things to them?
In 2020, I'm not explaining anything to nobody. Please do your research. But the friends that I have, thankfully, they do their research. And some of them, they haven't protest. I know one is quarantined with her parents, but she has shared information constantly on her social medias, as well as donating and promoting anything that I'm doing, or that if I ask, like, can you amplify this? She says, of course, and she does it. That's what kind of friends that I have, and I think that if anyone asks you to do research for them, then maybe you need to reevaluate like that friendship, because that's not how friendship works. And then in regards to your first question about allies, I've met some wonderful people outside on the streets protesting who are of different races, who want to help like amplify our message and have been asking like what they can do to help, whether we need help building our website. Someone named LaRon helped build our website, or photography. Those allies have been helpful in stepping up to the plate in that manner.
Okay, so what should allies be doing? You know, the folks that are at home that maybe don't have a friend like you all and are saying, how can I help? What can I do? What can I do when it doesn't look, you know, planned, or it doesn't look like it's trendy? What do you say to them?
Yeah, what you can say to them is to keep saying and to keep speaking, because honestly, it's conversations that you have at home with your bigot aunt or your racist uncle or your homophobic father. It's those types of conversations that actually create change for a future generation, because then they're going to understand that you can't say this inside of my house, you can't say this to my future children, because it's wrong and it's immoral and it's not right. So when you have these conversations at home, it actually creates change for future paths and for future paths to be created. And also, aside from the conversations, put us in the rooms that we're not allowed to be in, that we haven't been in for years. So it's honestly just creating the space for Black women, Black men to be inside of the rooms that we haven't been allowed to be in, so that our voice is also heard.
Okay, turning to monuments now. So there are mixed feelings on monuments. Okay, some believe that all of them should be taken down. Is there a limitation? Is there one thing that's like, okay, if you own slaves, the monument should go down? Or is there something else that should be used as a judgment for the monument?
Each and every one of those monuments.
All of them must go down, knock them down.
Because now
all of it, every single
one. So you think like George Washington's monument should go down?
Yep.
Alexander Hamilton.
Down.
Tell me why. Tell me why. One at a time. Okay. Y'all excited about this?
I'll let you take it.
I'm just saying, I was just adding on. I'm just saying, like, the school names after these slave owners need to go. You sending Black kids to these schools. Imagine I sent the Jewish kid to Adolf Hitler High School. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not fair to me. You know, you want me to sympathize for your groups and for all of you guys want sympathy from us, but you don't sympathize with us. No, it's unfair to me. But that's just all I had to say on it. I want to hear what you think.
NIALAH, what do you think?
They definitely need to come down. The schools need to be renamed. As he said, how is it that a Black child has to attend Robert E. Lee High School? Like, are you serious? But what I will say is that these conversations weren't had. Well, they were had before, but they weren't highlighted as much. And I'm just thankful that they are, even if that's because like Black Lives Matter is trendy. Then yes, we need to have a conversations about these statues that need to come down. Especially when we realize the history that we weren't taught in schools, like George Washington having teeth from enslaved African people. Like, that's problematic in themselves. And we honor this man maybe because he was the president of the United States, but Black people weren't free at that time, you know? And a lot of these presidents who either raped enslaved African people or owned them, like, why are we honoring them? Whose history are we honoring?
But some would say he's a founding father.
A founding father who owned
Founded what?
And then also it's already here. This is indigenous land.
I mean, to the country where you live, where you reside.
This is indigenous land, and two, like, I didn't have a choice to come here. Like, somehow my ancestors survived the transatlantic slave trade and migrated from, when they were free, Mississippi and Arkansas to Chicago, Milwaukee, and I'm here, but this wasn't a choice. This land already existed by the indigenous people who lived here before Europeans came and brought chickenpox over and diseases.
Okay. That's a whole nother topic. Okay, Nia, stop moving around. Let me get your answer.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to find my AirPods so I can hear everybody.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So
can you hear me at all, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I can.
Okay. So I ask again, should there be a set of rules? Okay, well, if this person did this, or if he didn't do this, or she didn't do that, what standards should be used for taking down statues? Or should there be any? All of them should come down.
I don't find there to be any standards. I feel as though it's plain and simple. Honestly, if this person had nothing to them besides the finding of America that was already founded, or whatever historical reference they want to refer to as to why they have them standing up, honestly, just recognize that there's Black historians out there and there's Black intellectuals out there that should also have their statues up. So when we talk about trailblazers and why they should have statues, then honestly, take down Christopher Columbus and put up Rosa Parks. Like, take down George Washington and put Frederick Douglass. Like, there's so many inspirational people out there that actually implements a change for Black people and not just white people. So honestly, it's really just, there's no limitation for it.
Should they be torn down or should they be put somewhere else? Because it is a part of history. It is a fact of what happened. So should they completely be erased or should they be put somewhere else?
Erased. Are there any Adolf Hitler like statues in Germany? There may be. I don't think so. Like, we know that it happened, and that story is written down in the history books, but we don't need to see a statue to say that this happened.
Okay. All right. I appreciate you all being so honest and sharing with me today. I just want to know, if there are any final thoughts, if you want to share with me, what inspires you to get out there every day and do what you do and start organizations.
I spent my New Year's in Ghana because of the 400 years since the first enslaved African first reached the Americas. And part of that trip, I also went to castles where enslaved African people were held before they went onto the boats. And just being there, I was overwhelmed with so much emotion and tears and feeling. And to this day, I believe that I'm here and I'm fighting because someone else survived. So I must continue this fight for myself and for the next generation. Okay,
before we go on to the next person, I want to ask you, apparently Ghana and the Washington Post just said that they're opening up the doors to Black people, Black Americans who want to move there, people who are fed up with the United States and want to leave the country and go there. Are you going to be willing? Are you going to be one of those people who's willing to move to Ghana? I
definitely want to go. I want to go. I'm considering maybe being one of those people. Maybe I have like a house in Ghana and come to the Americas. I have to continue my work with Freedom March.
But what if they want you to stay there and contribute to the economy and not come back to the United States? Would you do it?
Yeah, I would be open to it. Like, if it looks like if Trump wins another 4 years, then I think it's enough for me. I'll just be organizing from Accra.
Okay, final thoughts from the rest of you. Go ahead, Nia.
Okay, yeah, all right. So honestly, my final thoughts is support your local activists, support your local protesters, whether or not it's through donations, whether or not it's through just amplifying the work that they're doing, and trust in the youth, trust in Black women, because they will lead you to your better future. And that's about it.
Okay. CHIBUEZE?
Yeah, I think we should, like she said, support the local activists. But I also believe that us, like our activism, it shouldn't just be marching. Now that we've marched, now that we did what we've done, it's time to reach back into the community and educate the youth. You know what I'm saying? We need to start teaching the youth, because look, I'm a 23-year-old kid. She's 17. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I never saw anybody my age or even 17 around me. Like, the 17-year-olds and 23-year-olds around me, we not on this. It's not the stuff we're around. So if more of us around our age group, we're reaching back into the community and showing the people of our age and younger, like, yeah, this is what we need to be doing, and motivating them and getting them ready and showing them what we, you know what I'm saying, what the end goal is, that this is a long-term game and let's all get on one accord, we could definitely accomplish something major. That's all it has ever been. If we all came together and just did this, especially the youth, because the way the youth is now, this new generation, we take over the world. I'm just saying, we could really cause some immense change and really actually accomplish it. And we definitely.
And to this point, Nia forgot to say this, I forgot to say this as well. Follow Freedom March NYC for our latest updates. We'll actually be launching an organizer training program where you can sign up, and then you will have a training for a week, and you'll learn how to do your own nonviolent protest, as well as voter registration, lobbying, and policy information. So follow us at Freedom March NYC so you can stay tuned and be updated when we launch that program at the end of this week or early next week.
And obviously, you all, except the 17-year-old Nia, are registered to vote, right?
Yeah.
You're registered, right?
Actually,
you're Scorpio.
I am registered. I'm pre-registered.
Okay.
I'm pre-registered. So November, I am ready. All set.
All right. And let me say this to you, Nia. I'm a professor at Hampton University, and I give extra credit for my registered to vote students and students who vote. So please take my class, Jack 101 or Jack 320. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. I'll see you in class. I just want to thank you guys so much for tuning into the show. I want to thank all of my guests. I want to thank NIALAH and EDARI, and Nia White, of course, and CHIBUEZE. I'll finally get it right. Thank you guys so much for being on today.
All right, thank you.
Okay. And
also, thank you for holding this.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you guys. And stay around. I want to talk to you at the end real quick. And I also want to thank you guys for your questions and your comments and for watching. Please share this. Please subscribe. And always know that it starts with a conversation, even if it's the most difficult conversation and you don't always agree with what everybody's saying. And you can still have that conversation even in the midst of chaos. Thanks. I'm April Woodard.